Hey, what's up guys? Today we're gonna talk about React Hook. As we all know from version 16.8, React has new features called React Hook, which is something that you can use in a functional component. The hook gonna store the state. Let's take a look. Okay, we just start the project. This is the plain project. And the first hook we're gonna talk about is called useState. We're gonna import that. Set state, useState. Okay, here we declare two variables. So we use the useState hook, which is a function that takes one parameter and return an array. And we use array destructuring to set two variables. So we are going to use it now. So we are gonna create a button. A button has a function called onClick. We're gonna create this function. So on every click, we're gonna reset the value. We're gonna add the value 1 plus, and this button called click, and we're gonna show the value. Okay, on the right hand side, as we can see, there's a button and the value. On every click we press, it's gonna update the value here. Okay, now then we can tell useState is like set state in class-based components. Okay, next hook we're gonna talk about is called useEffect. useEffect is like component date mount in older version of React. Let's try that out. We're gonna import that useEffect. useEffect function takes two parameters. First one is a function and second one is an array. Okay, if we're gonna reload the page, as we can see, that print out useEffect. Is that component date mount. And on the second parameter, we can listen to the state. Like once the state is updated or changed, it's gonna call the function inside the useEffect. Let's try that. Let's add the value count on second parameter. Okay. Gonna reload the page. We see the useEffect on first time page loaded, and then we're gonna click here to update the value count, and that print out the useEffect too. So every time the count changed, it's gonna call this function here. I'm gonna do that a couple more times. Okay, that's useEffect. Hi, next hook we're gonna talk about is called useReducer. We're gonna import that. useReducer hook is quite similar to useState, but it deals with more complicated situation, like manage with more state change. Let's show that. Okay, here we use useReducer. It takes two parameters. First one, reducer. We need to declare that. Let's declare that. We're gonna explain that later. And the second parameter is initial state. Okay. So reducer, that's a function that takes a state and an action. The state is like a previous state that always pass in with the previous state. And the action is an object that has the key of type. And on here we're gonna match out the type and to do some calculation and return a new object. And let's do that. We create a line called counter, which show the count value. The current value is 0. The state is here. That's the state that returned from useReducer. Now we add one button on it. That's a button add one. When we click it, it's gonna call dispatch function that take an object as a parameter. That object comes with the type and the payload. When we call the dispatch, the parameter here is gonna be an action here. It's gonna compare the type, and then once type is matched, it's going there to take out to do the calculation here, and then return the value for the latest count. Let's try that. When we click it, it's gonna update the count. Let's do the same thing for the subtraction. Same thing here. Take the value object. The object comes with the type and the payload. Here, gonna match the type, and then use the value from payload. Okay, we reload the page, and then we add one and a minus. Okay, that's for useReducer. Hi, next hook we're gonna talk about is called useCallback. So let's look at this example here. We have in the app component, and then we have count value. We got a function called getNumber, and we have a child component. We pass getNumber function to the child component here. Let's look at inside the child component. So once child component loaded the first time, it's gonna pop out alert, and they print out the value of getNumber. So if we reload the page, as we can see, there's because it ran the child component, so that's an alert pop out. That makes sense. Okay, and if we gonna change the value of the count, let's see. if we change the value of the count, and that re-render child component too. But why? Because we never changed the getNumber function. Why child component re-rendered? So basically, it's because like we didn't save the getNumber function in the memory. So every time we re-render the app components, that's gonna cause to create another getNumber function, which is different to previous one. So what we can do is we can use useCallback. We can use useCallback to wrap the function that take two parameters. Second one is array. Second one is dependency. Okay, we wrap the getNumber function in the useCallback, and then we're gonna try that again. Reload the page. Yeah, child component rendered on first time, and if we're gonna click it here, okay, as we can see, there's no alert pop out anymore because child component is not re-rendering, because we wrap the getNumber function in the useCallback, so it's gonna store in the memory. So every time we refresh app components, child component that receive from child component is gonna remain the same. So it's not gonna cause child component to re-render. Okay, that's the callback hook. Hi, on next one we're gonna talk about is called useMemo. Okay, let's see this example here. We declare an array, and we have a state called count. We have self-involved function here. It's called render subject, which is return an array of elements. And every time this function get called, it's gonna print out recalculated on the console, and they're gonna return an element and the render subject. Let's look at the right hand side. As we can see, there's a list of all subjects, and when we first load it on the console, it print out recalculate. That makes sense because on the very first time we load the page, it's gonna call this function. So on every time we're gonna call this app function or app components, we're gonna calculate that. We're gonna calculate here. We're gonna calculate render subject again. So if we're gonna update the count, which means like it's gonna call app function, which is gonna recalculate here. Let's see here. We're gonna click that. As we can see, every time we update count value, it's gonna do the recalculation, gonna return new array of element. We don't want this thing to be happen, because the value here is gonna be same all the time. We don't need to recalculate that. We don't need to recalculate that every time. So what we can do is we can use hook called useMemo. Okay, we're gonna wrap this render subject, this function, in the useMemo. Let me just copy and paste that. useMemo take two parameters. First one is a function. The other one is second parameter is dependencies. Okay, we wrap that render subject in the useMemo function. So we're gonna see that again. We reload the page. Okay, first time render subject. Then we're gonna update the count, and then we'll see if they're gonna recalculate render subject. As you can see now, we update the count, but it doesn't recalculate here. So basically, the useMemo is they're gonna store the value. It store the value. So if the next rendering, the value is gonna be same for the compared to previous one, it's gonna remain the same. And let's talk about the second parameter of useMemo is the dependency that we can listen for a state. Like if we listen to the count, we are obviously we are not using a count inside this function, but I just want to show you this example. If we listen to the value count, every time count value changed, it's gonna recalculate here. It's gonna recalculate and return a new array of elements. Okay, we're gonna refresh the page. And on the first time, it got recalculate, and the second time, it's gonna print that it recalculated again because we update the count. Okay, yeah, that's the useMemo. It stores the calculate value or calculate result. If the result doesn't change, it's not gonna recalculate that again. That's it for useMemo. Hi, on next hook we're gonna talk about is called useContext. You can think of useContext as like a global state management. Okay, we're gonna demo that. So first of all, we need to create a context. We create the context, we export that because we're gonna the trial component or any component that's gonna consume the data from here. We need to import the useContext, and we need to wrap the app with the useContext provider. We wrap the app in the useContext provider, and we give it a value, which is that any component in app can consume the value here. Okay, we're gonna go for app component here. On the app component, we import trial component. We import a child component. At the moment, the child component they only have text child. We're gonna consume the data from global. So we need to get the data. We use the hook called useContext. And the userContext is the one we have declared at very first time here. We import the userContext. Then we're gonna consume the data from global. As you can see, we get the context object, which is here, this one, and we get a key. We get a key of hello, then it returns the value of what. Okay, that's useContext. Hi, on next one, we're gonna talk about useRef hook. Let's see the demo. We're gonna declare the ref. useRef. Gonna use useRef hook, return hook, take the param of none. We're gonna bind that ref to the DOM. So we're gonna see the different, let's see, we're gonna useEffect. We're gonna print out my ref, see what's in there. We reload page. As ref is an object, and then that have a value called current that pointed to the DOM with the pDOM. Let's see if we can change some attributes of the DOM. So my ref current, let's say style and color. Let's change that to red. Here we go. On the right hand side, as we can see, the text style has been changed to red now. So ref is something that we can refer to the DOM and bind the DOM, and we can change the DOM. We can change DOM style. The next hook we're gonna talk about is called useImperativeHandle. So for this hook, that allow you to call the child components functions from parent component. Let me show you the demo. So first of all, we need a useRef to link that to the child component. Okay, and on the child component, we need to use this hook, useComparative_handle. So we're gonna define a function called do something. For child component, we pass probes, and the second parameter is ref. So in useImperativeHandle, we take the ref, and the second one is a function. Okay, and third one is the array for dependencies. So after that, we need to wrap the child component in the forward reference. Basically, it just export the child component to parent component. Okay. So we define a function, we have used the hook, we have exported to the parent component. We receive the ref here. Yeah, ref. So if we're gonna click that, we're gonna take the child component, which is input reference current. That's the child component. We're gonna call the function from child component. Let's see if that works. I'm gonna reload that. We're gonna click that. As you can see, we call the function inside the child component that print out do something. That's it for useImperativeHandle. Hi, our next hook we're gonna talk about is called useLayoutEffect. Let's see this example here. We define IEF, we link that to this div here, and after page is loaded, we're gonna do a bit heavy calculation. We get a bounding client rectangles, and we calculate that, and we reset the style. We reset the style for this div, for second div here. Okay, so let's see the page here. We're gonna reload the page. As you can see, that there's the flashing on the page. If you don't see that very clear, we're gonna go for the performance here. We're gonna reduce the speed of CPU 6 times slower. Then we're gonna reload the page again. As you can see, there's like a blue div, and it refreshed, then disappeared. Let's go optimize it. We're gonna change the CPU back to normal. We can change that by using useLayoutEffect. After we're using useLayoutEffect, let's see that again. We're gonna reduce the CPU speed. As you can see, there's not flashing anymore, because useLayoutEffect, it's gonna do the work before document is loaded. Actually, it's on rendering. On the rendering stage, it do the calculation, and after the document is loaded, all style has been set. Okay, that's called useLayoutEffect. Okay, that's all for React Hook. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.